The Magnet Pal has endless uses, from keychains to hanging a pipe wrench. Not to mention my favorite use, the only stud finder that actually works. So thank you for that, Craig. And without further ado, welcome to the Invent With Me podcast. How you doing, Craig?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're really excited to have you because today's episode is episode 16, a retail strategy. What are we talking about today, Marcus?
You know, we've talked a lot about, you're starting your own company or you didn't even think you were going to start a company. You've brought your product all the way to the point where maybe you're selling on Amazon or maybe you're selling on your own website. We're big fans of that, kind of doing your own marketing and your own stuff like this. It's time to branch out and think bigger and think about maybe a Home Depot or a Lowe's or, Menards for something like your product and my product. And there are a million other avenues. And I think Craig is going to help inspire us to think outside our box and to get bigger and better.
Yes, and I think that what we should gear towards is aspiring inventors who maybe their first target isn't Home Depot,
Sure.
right? Maybe it starts even simpler, and that's what I love Craig to dive into. But first, let's let Craig talk a little bit. First of all, Craig, what is Magnet Pal?
Magnet Pal is a small, high-powered magnet covered in plastic with a small loop that you can attach to anything so you can hide it, find it, secure it. Very versatile with, we say, 101 plus uses. Once you feel the power, you're amazed.
Wow, nice. Okay. And when did you think of and begin to develop this idea?
This product's about 6 years old now.
Okay.
And we started in the market simply by mailing them out to locksmiths and inviting them to become a dealer.
Oh,
and
nice.
we built up a network of hundreds of independent locksmiths. Their purpose in selling it is it's the best hide-a-key. It's not like the hide-a-key boxes we traditionally use that rust, fail, and fall off. Magnet Pal will not rust, fail, or fall off.
So
Right.
when you invented this product, it wasn't 101 uses. You actually had almost a single use in mind, and then it just became, oh, I'm using it for this. I'm using it for that.
We discovered uses ourselves, and then our users discovered uses.
Yeah.
And now we package it or merchandise it for multiple different uses.
Okay.
It's really a very simple product, but with real utilitarian uses that solves real problems.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I love it.
I just to jump in there, I think that brings up a really good point that people have an idea and something in mind. I had the same thing. I'm like, I have a focus. It's this one thing. And it's really exciting when people out there in the real world start to use it for all these other things that you never thought. And man, it goes so quick from a single focus track of I'm marketing for the key dealer, or sorry, for the hide-a-key thing. And now you've got to open your mind to thinking that you're going to now market to the construction worker who might use it to hang a hammer and all this stuff. I mean, that's kind of what we're all dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For people just in this who think I have a seed of an idea and I only see it going one way, always keep in mind there's this amazing magic that happens when you start putting yourself out into the world and you put your product into the world, and that is things start to blossom in ways you couldn't have imagined. And that's great. Let that take off. Explore those avenues efficiently.
You need to be open to what these things can become. Many times your first iteration isn't what you end up with.
Right.
And that kind of brings us really to, I have an invention. Is this worth something? Should I do this?
Definitely.
And these are some of the things that you need to ask yourself first. If I do these things, can this sell? And can I make money? Also, is there a reason for this product to exist? Does it actually solve a problem for somebody or create a need? A lot of times we have an incredibly clever idea that may be different, but it's not really of value to anybody.
Right.
And so we have, let's not quit our jobs until we kind of realize that we do have something and we've developed our formula to get it into market.
You mean that the minute I have an idea, I shouldn't get on Reddit and complain that no one's giving me $500,000 to start my idea?
Well, that's a good start, but it generally doesn't work.
I see that all the time on Reddit. People are like, this idea, it's definitely going to solve world hunger, but people are just too stupid to hear it, and I don't get it, and I'm frustrated, so I'm done. And what you're talking about is, roughing it, burning the midnight oil, doing it in your spare time, doing it in a efficient way that doesn't ruin you and your family's life per se, but has a clear path, and you're investing sweat equity rather than waiting for a handout, because there are no handouts in this game. If you haven't provided enough value or proven the product enough, no one's going to be chomping at the bit to fund it, to assist you, to rub your back at night and make sure you feel okay about it. That is on you for quite a while. Now, it's tough, but it doesn't have to be lonely. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Well, I like one of the things that you guys have said previously. You've taken the knocks so they don't have to.
Right.
I think all of us are proven, having gone through this. We've all made mistakes. We've all spent some money, but we've figured out how to make it work. Mm-hmm. And I think that perseverance is going to be really important at the beginning of any journey.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a lot previously about using online as your key marketing vehicle, going viral, getting placement. Those are wonderful avenues, but there are other ways as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mentioned, for example, we simply started by mailing the product old-fashioned to independent retailers and giving them a price list and a merchandising idea and inviting them to become dealers.
And that's still that mode still exists. People can do that.
That still exists, and we still have a lot of these dealers out there. Mm-hmm. But as well, when we learned that this was successful, we learned to start, if it's that easy, I don't want to say easy, but if we're able to succeed with an independent businessman, why don't we send them over to somebody with more stores?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started doing that, and we picked up an 85 store chain. Mm-hmm. Then we simply started going for some of the larger ones, and Magnet Pal's available on HomeDepot.com, Lowe's.com, and we're in stores around the country. Mm-hmm. But the formula that we're developing for this works for a lot of products.
Right.
So there are other avenues.
Mm-hmm.
To be successful at retail, though, is very different than what's successful online.
Okay.
Online, you need to have your content out there. That content's very important because we need to tell people about this new invention. It doesn't exist. So nobody's going to know this unless we get the message out there. There are some products that you simply can package properly, set on a shelf in the right environment, and it'll sell. MagnaPal is an example of that as a hide key. The MagnaPal hide key in a key shop. Boy, what a novel idea. Mm-hmm. When they see it, the package communicates that it's stronger. It won't rust or fail or fall off. And that's something very easily that's an impulse purchase they can buy. Mm-hmm. But other products are more sophisticated, and you really need to tell the story more. But once you've started telling that story online, you're going to learn how customers respond. And once you have that formula together, when you approach the larger retailers, you really need to go to them with a full story. And it really isn't just, hey, I got the greatest product in the world. Have a look at this. That's important. But we need to tell them who the customer is. And we need to show them that the customer responds and is buying it. That's some of that online promotion. That's some of the other things. We also need to have our retail packaging properly laid out that communicates the message quickly. You only have a couple of seconds in a retail store to get somebody to stop, look at, and maybe pick up your item. And we all make a lot of mistakes. Oh my God, my item can do this and that and this and that and this. That gets lost. So you really need to focus it down because you're trying to convince this retail merchant to make an investment in buying your product and putting it into 10 stores, 100 stores, 5,000 stores. And he needs to be convinced that when the consumer sees that on the shelf, that they get it and that they're going to want to buy it. So the wanting to buy it part is you're creating demand with your packaging or your marketing out there. You're clearly communicating your solution. Then your pricing has to be correct. And by that, I mean, it's not just the retail price, but you got to keep that merchant happy. He's got to make enough margin so that it's an improvement to his bottom line. Then once the product is sold, you have to think about do I have the logistics system, or how do I get this to the retailers? And I got to tell you, it all sounds like a lot, but it's doable. It is really doable because each of the retailers has very clear vendor manuals and very clear requirements. And there are a lot of third-party helpers out there who can help you do this. You just have to be very clear and committed to doing it, but it is possible. And it really starts with your product and understanding what you're solving and why you belong on that retail shelf.
Interesting. I want to real quick touch on two of those points. One is, so I've got a retailer in mind. I'm excited. I want to present myself to this person. You want to create a one sheet, right? Or at least something that's very simple. For all our listeners, what does that entail? What's kind of on that one sheet?
The first thing I would do, and I'll answer that in a second, is you need to become a student of that retailer. You need to get into the store. You need to take photos and know exactly the shelf that you're going on. You need to know the price point of every product that is in your category. If you're selling a glass cleaner, you need to know what glass cleaners they're selling. You need to know how many milliliters in a given one. You need to know everything about it because you have to first see, are you offering a value to the consumer if it were on that shelf? You also have to think, they've only got this much space for window cleaner. They got to get rid of somebody to bring you in. And why are they going to do that? So once you kind of analyze that and you know where you are, then you start your sell sheet. And your sell sheet needs to be an impactful one page, a dramatic photo, a headline. Your photo could be the product. It could be the solution. It could be the packaging. Then you want to basically articulate the problem. Window cleaners leave streaks. Our window cleaner doesn't leave any streaks, as tested by blah, 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 whatever that main benefit is.
Right.
If you've got 2 or 3 benefits, you can use them, but you really want to focus on those things that are on a customer's main parameter of value. What I mean by that is there are certain things you can make all sorts of changes on, and it's not going to change what we do. For example, let's say, Grant, that you have to be in Chicago on Tuesday for a 10 o'clock meeting. You go online, there are all these flights, and I can offer you a wonderful deal. I can offer you the cheapest flight out there, but it's going to get you in at 12 o'clock on Tuesday after your meeting.
Yeah.
You're not going to take it.
Yeah.
And airlines have done so many things. We have wider seats. We'll pick you up at home and carry your bags. We'll bring them to your hotel. None of these things matter. The schedule matters, followed by the fare. So you really need to know what the drivers are. So we go back to the window cleaners. You know, we're streak free. You know, we're red colored cleaner. Do those things matter? I don't know. Price is always a driver. Maybe you use that, maybe you don't. But you have to know your category and why you belong there. And then that sales sheet has to quickly articulate that says, here's why you need us. The backside of this is going to have what we would call your setup information. It's your retail packaging, size, weights, dimensions, your UPCs. How many pieces of a retail unit come in a case? All of this information, in that case, you need to have your weights and dimensions. You need to have your part numbers. You need the things that they're going to need so they could place an order for you. Because they can't just go, send me some torque straps. You know, they need to have the detail because these guys are methodical. They have X amount of shelf space they're managing, and if something's 4 inches wide, they need to know that.
Yeah.
The shipping costs are affected by the weights. Additionally, on the back, you can romance a little further if there's some expansion. You know, if you have a data point, if you have third-party validations, if you have 10,000 great 5-star reviews on Amazon, those things matter. I recently was looking at the water pick category, and I noted that water pick brand had a sticker on their. This brand's been around 30 years. They had a sticker on the front that says 225,000 5-star reviews. That's pretty compelling. Now, none of us are going to have that, but you have to know your category to know what you're up against.
Yeah.
Because if you're going and selling as water pick and you go, I got 182 5-star reviews, maybe that's not your best selling point on that shelf.
Yeah. No, that's great. And the other question I had was bringing it back to, we like to make things as easy as possible that makes our listeners think that they can also, or believe, which we hope, that they can also do it, which was, you said, take a display or send a display with your product set up to these retailers. How does one go about getting it or making a display?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Again, it gets back to studying. You have to know the nature of your retailer. Independent retailers are a lot more flexible. They can do a lot more things. And sending an unsolicited display to a retailer may or may not be a tactic you choose to use. But for those guys, you can put that display on that one sheet, that sell sheet.
Okay.
That's one of your selling features. You can articulate your display program. Buy one case at 50% off and get a free display. And in your email, or you can tell them, this month's special, or but in terms of making that display, there are a lot of display manufacturers, and you can go to some of these guys and pay them, and they will come up with a concept. One of the things I like to do is, again, if you understand the category and you understand the competitors, what kind of a display you may want to make. You have to ask yourself, do you want the display to hold merchandise? Do they want to pull it off the shelf? Do you want the display to articulate those key benefits? And then how do you do that visually arresting or in an interesting way that engages the customer? It could be you actually have, going back to the glass cleaner, maybe there's a window there with streaks versus no streaks. I don't know.
Or let's talk about the Magnet Pal. So what makes that display kind of unique and interesting?
Thank you for asking about one of my favorite subjects.
No, that's great.
Magnet Pal is incredibly strong. You really have to feel the power. So we thought we have to put a display in that's both arresting and stops people, but allows them to feel the power. So we developed a countertop display with a metal riser and a metal overhang. And then there's a big 3-inch type, try me. That's all it says. Then the Magnet Pal, the tiny Magnet Pal, is held there, and we attach to the Magnet Pal 2 heavy pipe wrenches. And it's kind of odd looking. You wouldn't think that little item could hold 2 pipe wrenches. And when you go and pull that off, the pipe wrenches drop, they hit the metal plate, they make a big noise. Everybody in the store looks over and you go, oh my God, that's so powerful. Then when you hold the magnet back towards the metal, it jumps up and grabs it, and you immediately experience the power of it.
Yeah.
We've also packaged the product in a tube with the magnet towards the bottom, and that merchandise is merchandised along the side on the metal riser. So your display is self-contained. It allows a try me feature, and although I'm talking about pipe wrenches, the retailer can attach any item that you might want to hide or secure to that's relevant to their customer. We have the the locksmiths, some of them putting 200 keys on one of these, a big, but it holds it, and it again illustrates the power. So in something like that, it's understanding your core benefit in the display and trying to articulate that. Of course, you have to think about it. These are going to retail stores, and nobody cares about your product or your display, so they're going to beat the blank out of it. So you have to make sure you make something that's robust. If you're thinking about a display for the larger retailers, they all have rules. They'll have the Walmart book is 120 pages that covers displays.
Wow.
Some retailers, Best Buy requires you to use their preferred display manufacturers. Again, those are the places we aspire to be.
Yeah.
And you'll get there in chapter 2.
Right.
But in chapter 1, just if you need to articulate a new product, getting that display in the independents is a great way to do it. And I probably wouldn't just send the display right out. I'd use that sell sheet, gain some interest, and then you can talk about your program. And if you think about it, and I'm sorry to just kind of go on a monologue, but I love this stuff. If you think about it, your idea of that display is that's your hidden salesman. That's your salesman that's standing in the store 24 hours a day, and you don't have to pay him.
Yeah, and he never complains about overtime.
He does not. Yeah. And I don't think there are any labor laws that apply either.
Nope.
So the point is that if you get that in there and they sell through, they just buy more inventory and put it on that display.
Yeah.
When it starts getting empty, the retailer's reminded, Oh, geez, I got to get some more of the Magnet Pals.
Yeah.
They call up, email, they place an order. So my point with this is that first sale, you might want to think about, how do I remove all the barriers to entry to get these guys to buy this?
Yeah.
Now, there's some companies and some people who say, hey, I'll give it to you. I don't like that because free is free. Sure.
Free sucks.
It does. They need to have some skin in the game.
Yes.
But if you make it easy for them to get in and you're not hurting yourself, then you get the reorders and you make your money over time. Another way to look at it is that if you know a storefront is going to sell X number of pieces per store per week, then you can kind of calculate out your value of a retailer over 12 months. I'll put the display in. You've got it for 12 months. I'm selling 10 a month at that store. Therefore, I'm going to sell 120 over the years. If you're making $10 a unit, you know what you're making out of a storefront, and you can budget how much you want to spend to penetrate a given store. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a different way to look at it, but you're trying to establish your product for the long term, not selling it one time.
Yes. Yeah, it's a cost to acquire a customer. It's no different than if I'm looking at selling on Amazon or I'm running Facebook ads. I'm willing to spend, an inordinate amount of money to acquire that customer. I'm not giving it to anyone for free, but I may throw an ad in your face 7, 8, 9 times, and it may cost me $15, but I've got you. And now when you go to the trailer and you're missing a torque strap along with your display, you're thinking, you know where to go. You're that repeat customer, and your lifetime value may be $300, where in the beginning, someone could look at you, oh, they're a $30 sale, I'm not going to waste my time. But you're looking for that longevity, and it's the same with your display. Keeps them coming back for more. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about online, and I want to raise one issue that hits a lot of us when we go online. Amazon is the fastest way to go to market, launch a new product. You can test so much and learn so much, and you can gain great sales. The customers are there. We all have accounts. There's immediate trust. It's also an interesting thing that you, with clever placement and promotion, can have a brand new product and be right up on the same page, right next to the market leaders who have 50-year-old brands. Mm-hmm. And if you can crack the code of why your product belongs there or why people should buy over that guy, they're susceptible. It's a beautiful place. However, the tools that you use and the decisions that you make to be successful on Amazon can limit you to only Amazon. What I mean by that is that the margin structure required to sell on Amazon and to make a required margin for yourself is generally a lot lower than what's required to service a major multiple retailer.
Okay.
So people will go out. Let's go back to my window cleaner. I don't know why I have that analogy. It just came to my mind.
It seems to work. Let's let it roll.
Everybody has it.
Yeah. So we go out and Windex is there, and they're the market leader, and they sell 52 ounces on Amazon for $10. And you go out and you've got your 62 ounces of Craig brand cleaner, and I'm seeing it's streak free and nobody's responding. So I'm going, damn, I'm more, and they're not buying. So I go, look, you know what? Let me see if at $8 they'll buy it. Mm-hmm. And then, so I find out that people will buy Windex almost no matter what you do. But if I sell mine for $5 next to theirs with 10 ounces more, I can get a decent amount of sales, and I'm only making 6 or 8% net margin. But if I turn my cash, I'm making enough money, and I'm keeping the lights on, and things are working, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So then I go start talking to the retailers, and I say, look, I'm kicking the crap out of Windex right now.
Right.
And they go, that's fantastic. I love your price point. Let's do that. We'll put you at $5 on my shelf. Now I need to pay $250 for that. You need to deliver it to 4,500 stores, and you need to take returns, and there's payment terms, and And in the end, the business model doesn't work.
Yeah.
So one of the things to think about is how you do succeed online and what your strategy is. And if your goal is later having a brand available everywhere. And stores aren't the only solution. A lot of times, that may not be the right solution. Mm-hmm. But still, there's more stuff sold in stores than online. And there's certain categories where it just is an online, it's not an online business.
Oh, yeah.
You know, not many people are buying Ford F-150s
Right.
on Amazon. I don't know many builders who are going on Amazon and buying a house worth of 2x4s or bricks. You know, I don't recommend getting your drywall sent. You know, so the point kind of, we're all kind of in the hardware industrial space, and I think that regardless of what's happening with online, certain industries are more susceptible than others. You know, the hardware channel is a good, solid channel that has reason to remain for some considerable amount of time. Additionally, you know, pharmacies are also strong channels that are not easily replaceable by online. You know, we're all still enjoying going to the grocery stores. There are other things that are more susceptible, but the point is that you can have a very successful online-only business, and you can do tens of millions of dollars, be very happy. You can also have a very successful retail business doing the same thing and be very happy. And you can do both, but you just have to be very thoughtful about it and make sure that your strategies allow you to not truncate one over the other.
And something actually you both taught me is when I first decided to kind of launch my product, I had in my mind the old school 1999. And then, you know, enough people were like, well, that's just silly. That 1999 is like the new 24.95 or whatever it is. And even that, you talked about retail and their margins are going to be completely different than your online. Are you a fan of pricing whatever you think in your mind, pricing it higher and then being able to work backwards off of that?
To me, the ideal strategy is this. You have to have enough margin to support your business. You need to know what that is, and you need to estimate what the retailers will need. There's a term called keystone. It's basically if you're $5, your retail the price should be $10. So the retailer is going to want to buy it at about half the price. Now that's only part of the story because there's programs, returns, so there needs to be enough. So the strategy I prefer is that Amazon actually is the highest price, and then the retailer comes in under it. And Amazon serves as your awareness, your marketing. And in some ways, Amazon, because you have to pay for shipping as well, you know, can warrant a higher price.
Yeah.
That's a perfect strategy. Very few categories can do that. But where you have something that's unique, you can go in and establish yourself somewhere and then leave enough so when you sit with the buyer in the retail store, they go on Amazon, they look at it, and you go, you're going to be cheaper than that. And I've got your full margin. You've got a really strong product. Having said that, you can have parity and it's just fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Very nice.
Retail buyers are really savvy people. They have an area that they're responsible for. For the larger chains, it might only be 4 or 8 feet of space. But they know every SKU on there. They know how much they're estimating to sell. They know what their margin is. They know what their returns are. As a matter of fact, a lot of the retailers decide, you know, when you have several thousand stores, you cannot just go up and say, hey, I'm going to make a change today. Think about the labor of getting a new item to thousands of stores, get the labels out there, tell everybody. So they generally say, this section of the store, we're going to revisit once or twice a year, and we're going to reset it. And a lot of times that process will work with a guy, the buyer, who's studying this. He looks at everything he's done. He's got a spreadsheet, and they actually have fake retail stores near their head offices, where the whole store is set up in a warehouse. And our window cleaner guy's going for his line review. He has everybody send in their samples of what he thinks he's going to go on there, and he's playing around, he's looking at, he actually sets the shelf up. Then he's got a spreadsheet that shows each item, and he goes, great, I'm going to be up 5% next year. My margin's going to pump up 2% because I'm making these 2 changes. I really believe in this. So then, you know, he gets his boss over, and his boss goes, okay, take me through it. And his boss has that spreadsheet, and he goes, hey, I noticed that you've dropped the 52-ounce Windex, but you've got that 62-ounce from that guy down the road, and you have to justify why. And you go, well, it's a great deal at $5, and he's giving me the margin. And the boss goes, okay, well, you were selling at $10 and you were making $5 on each of those, and you sold 100,000 pieces. That one space was going to make $500,000 in gross margin. Now you've put in this one, and it's half the price and half the margin. So you're going to sell 200,000 units to make the same gross margin in net sales. So are you going to do that?
Right.
So again, price can be your enemy as well as your friend. So there's a real strategy, and it goes back to what I was saying a few moments ago. You have to know the shelf where you're going and know who the competitors are. And although I'm talking about retail stores, really it's the same thing online.
Yeah.
You look at that Amazon album page when you search, you need to figure out how you're going to differentiate and how you get their attention, and what you're doing.
When I first approached you, I think it was in late 2020, maybe 2021, I was having a conversation with you, and you said, well, how did you come up with the price you have? And it just so happened at that time I was trying to be the cheapest. And I said to you, well, Craig, this is my roundabout way of protecting my intellectual property. And what you said was interesting. You're like, well, your thought process is somewhat correct. If you're the price leader, no one's going to have room to undercut you. But basically the answer was have fun making no money for a long time. And it's a very real thing. So a lot of people, they'll think of an invention and then they'll go on Amazon, and because there's something similar to it that is a price they don't feel like they can sell it less for, that's it. That the buck stops there. Oh, if I can't be the cheapest, then I can't be the winner. Yep. But there's a whole nother avenue and realm of understanding who you're selling to, how you position it, how you price it, and how you justify those costs. Because there's a lot of things that I will seek out the most expensive of when I go into a store rather than the cheapest. So I don't want people to fall into that pigeonhole of thinking, well, if I can't make it cheaper than what they're selling it for at Home Depot, I have no chance in hell. It's just not true.
Absolutely. And there's some adages that tend to work. And if you look at retail and study, a lot of times if you think about your product or even your shelf as good, better, best, and a lot of people will buy the entry-level good product on price, and different retailers are different. But a lot of times people go right in the middle, the better product.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you do have those that are, I will only buy the best. I want the best in a category. So your strategies about price can be handled in a lot of ways. That area of your model mix, and model mix is you've got a lifetime of ideas in an invention, and you create one invention, and then somebody like me says, "Well, what else you got?" Like, Jesus, this is but that doesn't mean you can't take that one item and make it multiple things or multiple SKUs. Another way to look at it is the perception of selection. And this matters for both online and in the store. It's very hard for a retailer to take in one SKU. I mean, you've got the greatest thing in the world, but geez, I got to go through my VP, set everything up, set the systems up, got to get all this stuff. I want to do that for a good amount of business. Torque strap's beautiful. You have multiple strengths or multiple configuration, 2 pieces, 4 pieces. That merchandising strategy is an important part of your study.
Would you also, just jumping on that same thing, so Grant has several different strap strengths, so that's the differentiation. For you, could you use that same plot for a single product that can be used as different things?
You certainly can.
Okay, so that's like for the Magnet Pal.
Yeah, well, certainly you can have different SKUs for different applications.
Right.
Because the communication's totally different. Sometimes with the larger retailers, that's hard for them to execute, but it's possible.
Okay.
The more you know about the category and the clearer you are about the reason of your invention to exist, the easier this is going to be.
Yeah. You brought up quite a few times in the last 30 minutes, talking to buyers, retail buyers. You're going to talk to the buyer. How does somebody find the person that, let's say you go into the Windex aisle and that's where I want to sell my product. how do I locate the person who buys that grouping for a specific, let's say a Home Depot or Lowe's or whoever it is?
It's impossible.
Okay. It feels impossible.
Well, honestly, it's very difficult, but you can do it. The important thing is that you have your strategy clear about how you get what your product is and what you're going to say to them in that initial outreach.
Yeah. When I say the outreach, just for everybody out there, if you want to go sell to XY, is there typically a general bring your product, submit it to us, and then we'll figure that out? Or do you have to be much more definitive?
Yeah. So a lot of the retailers, they get a lot of call. You can call up the switchboard. Hey, I invented a new gold bar, and they will either put you through to a message, or they'll say, go to our website, fill out a form, and somebody will get back to you. And maybe they do. I personally haven't had a lot of luck with that.
Neither have we.
So then you have to start searching around the internet to try and find out who's doing what. There are multiple ways in. There are independent sales reps that you can choose to use. There are distributors. There are brokers. And if you study the retailer's website, they may have other information that can help you.
Okay.
I think, in my case, we've had a lot of factories approach us with products and the need for assistance, because there are wonderful, many, many great products, but you just can't sell them until you get your formula right, all of the things in place.
Yeah.
Once you have that, then then you have a chance. So there are people like us who can help along the way for the right products. But I think the key is, if you start with some independent people, you can get those guys. You call up an independent retailer in the lumber yard and say, hey, who makes the buying decisions? And you just try your pitch on him, because if you learn how to perform in one store, then we can learn to replicate that. So I'd really start, there to learn what you need to say and how you need to say it. It's possible, and you'll learn it.
And you said they're much more receptive, and they have the ability to be like, hey, why don't you just bring 20 units down this weekend and we'll give it a shot?
Could be, because in the electronics world, nobody from Apple's calling up an independent store. Nobody from Sony's calling them. But if a smaller brand calls up and says, hey, I've identified your store, I'd be a great fit, I'm in your same city, I'd love for you to talk to you about this item. Can I come down? Or you got 5 minutes now? Or when would be a good time? Same thing in those emails. A lot of times, people, if you're asking, if you're, some people are not comfortable with the idea of being in front, being in sales, and you don't have to be. You can call up and say, hey, I've invented something. I'd be interested in your advice, being the respected retailer that you are. Would you give me 5 minutes? Let me tell you what it is and where my packaging is at, or where my merchandising is, and how I think it would sell. And then go hit me. Then you really got to have your elevator pitch ready. You really need, if you're going through your product and going, and it does this, and it does that, and it does that, they really don't care. If you can think about it, here's the situation. Here's the problem people are having. Here's how this solves it. My packaging clearly shows this, and we're selling. My last video had 300,000 views on it. We're selling 100 pieces a day, or whatever your story is.
Sure.
The retailer's trying to buy sales. The retailers also want to excite their customers and give people a reason for coming into their store. And sometimes that's new items.
So for those of you listening who think, I thought the same way too. I thought, I have an idea. I even have a dozen sales on my website, courtesy of my friends and family. And now I'm going to go to a Do It Best Hardware, and I'm going to say, are you interested in this? I was looking at it as it's an awesome product. I was not looking at it as it's an avenue to generate money for the store. So they could care less that it's kitschy, it catches people's attention. What they didn't like was my packaging was flimsy and kind of sucked. What they didn't like was I didn't even know what the size of a master carton was. this actually happened. I had this embarrassing conversation. It ended up being, rather than me pitching the idea, them giving me some pointers, which, was painful, but finding out right away that you have to be much more prepared for that conversation than just, I have an idea. So I think that a lot of people will, myself included, you start to build and refine that pitch, that idea, through starting small. So I want to bring this back, Craig, and I'm going to milk you for everything you're worth while you're here, so you may want another swig of water. So if you had to go back, first, there's two things we try to do in every episode. We try to inspire people to invent, no matter who they are, no matter their education level, and no matter where they come from. And then we try to give them a tangible path to sales, because this is not some 1-800-INVENT so-and-so where we're trying to tell you to go license your idea. I think that's for the birds. What we want is to encourage people to bring the product to market and help people with their product. So if you had to go back to when you were thinking of Magnet Pow, I just want to ask, did it start as a napkin drawing for you? Were you an engineer who had been teamed up with buddies in college? What? When did that start?
I have a smart friend.
Okay.
Who loses his everything. Particularly the keys. Okay, let's go. Where are my keys? It started with that and him. He had made other plastic products before. So we discussed this and decided, hey, this is worth doing. Mm-hmm. And 6 months later, we figured out how to injection mold very strong rare earth magnet material in a shape and in a way and at a speed so that we could mass produce these and deliver them at a reasonable price.
Now, you found a factory who had the ability to do that molding?
Well, we designed the mold idea with a supposition, and we know a couple of mold makers.
Okay.
So we worked closely with them.
Mm-hmm.
Then we know injection mold factory. We actually manufacture in the United States.
Right.
So we were able to work closely with all of these people. Mm-hmm. And once we started, we produced at a slower rate, but we knew we were onto an ability to produce it. It was fantastic. We started producing these things. It's great. We've got this little item in our hands that nobody needs. Nobody's waking up going, God, I really need a little thing with it. So then we have to go out there, okay, how the hell are we going to sell this?
Yeah. And
that's where the idea of getting it in people's hands. Funny enough, I was certain that once you try this and you feel the power, you're interested, you've got it. I hand it to people, and, so you have to have people, try this thing. That's why we were sending them out.
Yeah.
That product would not work online. I was convinced.
Yeah.
But I was blown away. We put it online, and it's doing very well.
Yeah.
And it just continues to sell there.
Yeah.
As equally as the store.
I thought torque straps would never sell online because people don't buy straps online.
Yeah.
Now, don't get it twisted. They buy plenty of torque straps, but I was surprised if you position your marketing right and you catch the people who are trying to grab a quick gift for Father's Day, or they're trying to help their husband save another injury. Mm-hmm. If you position your marketing in that way, there's a huge group of people who will only buy things like that online. My wife will never wander the aisles of Lowe's on a Sunday morning with a coffee like a weirdo like me would, till they find something that they don't need to buy and they spend money on it. But if you put an ad in front of my wife that says this is going to help your husband to stop losing his keys, it's a no-brainer for buyers like that.
You mentioned the walking through Home Depot or Lowe's.
Yeah.
Once you really start studying this, you never walk through a store the same way again.
No.
Because you're not walking through going, gee, where's the orange juice? You're walking through and you're studying each category. You're looking at the packaging. You're looking at the relationship of price points.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out why this new thing you've never seen got on that shelf next to the big brands.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, that's your science that you got to start learning. And like you said, I don't care what your background is. If you have an idea, you can figure this out. You just got to go in there and study that that shelf space.
Yeah.
And become a student of what you're trying to do.
The information is all out there and it's free. Why I like that we do this in podcast form is because if this was a YouTube video primarily, people would ask us to lay out every single document, visually show every single step. I could do that all day long, but I'd be in this den for a year and a half, and I would bore you to death with the documentation. This is information you can find anywhere, whether it's patent information or letting your fingers do the walking, searching for retailers online, or like you said, just going and learning from a store what works and what doesn't. You will be surprised how quickly you'll take a second look at your packaging and be like, this looks like dog crap compared to everything else here. I need to refine this. So yes, all that, I love the point that you make. Like you told me one time, you're like, just go to Home Depot, Grant. It's all there. Figure it out. You want to know what a quarter pallet, how they work and if they work, go to Home Depot. Find the one that stands out to you. It's public domain information. It's just, are you willing to wring that sponge to get the water out of it? Because it's in there.
Do you think for people who are just starting and they, packaging is so important, and you've really hit home how important that is. If I have no idea and I've got my product, walking into a store, seeing kind of that aisle, is it a good start to mimic the packaging that's within that world, or do you want to try to be so much different than the packaging in that world?
Boy, that's a really difficult question to answer. Packaging is your artwork, but it's also your form. What I mean by that is if you see a 2-ounce, they call it a Boston round bottle on a counter, I don't care what the shape of it is, you would know it is 5-hour energy drink. This Windex bottle, when I say that, you probably think of that bottle shape.
Yeah.
So that your form follows your function. So if you were doing a knockoff of 5-hour energy, you have to decide whether, hey, I'm going to be just like them and I really want to look like them and follow their form. And maybe if you're doing a price play, we're 7-hour energy drink and we're $1 rather than $2, maybe you want to mimic it exactly. Or you might want to go in there and be different than them. That's something that each category is going to be different, and there may not be a right and a wrong answer. But you can try it. You can actually go online and test, put images of your competitive products up there in your weird shape, and get some consumer feedback. You can't really bet the farm on consumer feedback from that perspective, but it gives you a little more guidance.
And what's the like for somebody who wants to go that avenue? There are a bunch of different websites that they can do that.
Yeah,
you have a name of one?
Even Google has Google surveys that you can.
Okay.
And you pay a little bit of money and you test things. Again, focus groups and online testing, they're indicative. They may answer some questions, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be right once, you actually get there on the shelf.
Yeah. It's a good start though.
Oh, it's a good start. If it were me, I would go out and I would look at the category. I'd also walk in and look at other categories. Is there something innovative about my product or other products, and is another category solving that issue in another way? And so do I, co-opt other packaging? You can even just almost, mimic some of the other packages that are out there. Some colors perform better than others in different categories. I don't necessarily think that torque strap, leading with pink and green colors would really work.
Right.
Depending on your category, who you're appealing to, everything matters. Your type styles, your type weight, and how you do it. And with a good design partner, you can dial in who that is. And that's why when it gets back to, if we know what our problem is, what we're solving, then we start knowing who our target customer is, and we design with them in mind. I don't use a torque strap packaging to sell with that heavy communication, the strong font, to sell lipstick to teenage girls.
Of course.
That's probably not a good, so it's knowing, right back to, you become the foremost expert in your product. I guess the final thing I wanted to say is nobody cares more about your product than you. It's just, you can hire professionals, reps, retailers, everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You really got to do a lot of it yourself. If you can't prove it yourself and do the heavy lifting, then handing it over to somebody else on a fee basis or not fee basis or percentage of equity or something, they're not going to care as much as you are.
I'm just going to say that phrase one more time to make sure everyone's listening. No one cares about your product like you care about it yourself. Now, I'm not going to be redundant, but that is such an important factor. And we've all run into that. You think you're going to, like a patent attorney, for example, they're great. They do what they do. But when you hand them the idea to do the patent, they're not like, oh yeah, this is genius. And then the ideas are just flowing through their fingers, and it's like a symphony on that paper. No, they're gonna, if they care enough, they're gonna call you 5, 6, and 7 times. So just to get this straight, you really want to highlight this, and what does it do again? And you're like, are you serious? This is my baby. You're asking how, you don't just get it like that. No one cares like you do, no matter how much you're paying them. Well, that's really good. Back to more of like a baseline, a fundamental strategy. So let's go back to MagnetPal in its early inception. Well, let's forget MagnetPal. I want to kick you a fresh scenario because you know too much about MagnetPal and how to get into market. If you had just developed a very similar type product, right, but you only had, you invested $15,000 of you and your wife's money, you had the product on the table, maybe it's even packaged okay. Where would you start if social media was not in your wheelhouse whatsoever? And you have, you're working your day job. You get a check for $1,500 a week on a W-2. You got to make it work. How would you start?
As Marcus asked earlier, the one-page sell sheet. I would try and figure out, and on the front page of an 8.5 by 11, how can I tell my story as succinctly as possible?
Yeah.
On the back, I would have my business case. Then I would go on the internet, and I would think about, I would go walk through stores and figure out who could sell this. Maybe it's a fishing tackle product. I don't know. So I've got independent fishing stores, and I've got the big retailers, Cabela's, Bass Pro Shop, the fishing merchant at Walmart. I would start out with the independents, and I would find the names of stores. I'd probably call stores. Hey, this is Bob's fishing shop. Is Bob the decision maker on new products that come in there? Great. Can I get Bob's email or whatever it is? I might be able to get that. I might just have, but I would tend to email that sheet to him with a polite, succinct email. Everybody's busy. Nobody wants to read 2.5 paragraphs about how you came up with what.
Yeah.
Very succinctly. I got a great item that I think will do really well in your store. I'm the inventor of it. I'd love to talk to you about trialing it in your store.
Yeah.
And then call and follow up.
That's a great example. So I had a buddy when I worked at AT&T. He made lures, which was basically just molds he would make in his garage with hot liquid that you put in the fridge, and he would mold it to a nice little sparkly worm. And he just sells to local fishing shops and a few other people that he ships like a case to here and there. I was always always pounding on him, please scale this, go bigger, go bigger, go bigger. But that was his only avenue that he foresaw was, I'm just going to walk into local fishing shops and sell my lures. I sell them for $750. The shop sells them for $1350, and everybody's happy. So I think that don't underestimate your local mom and pop shops. They can purchase your products. Now, one thing that I ran into when I tried that was the follow-ups. The boss isn't here. The boss is here, but the holiday just ended, or fishing season's about over. So it's a follow-up game, and that's where being persistent and having a strong sales tactic comes in. So I think that a lot of people, Marcus, myself included, are going to run into the point where they're like, well, this is a hefty sales game. How would you go about finding a salesman to help you with that process, to do the follow-ups, to close the deals?
You really highlight one of the main things. You have to have that persistence and that follow-up, particularly in the early stage. But let's take your buddy, for example. So he goes out, he starts selling his lures. He's got local people selling them, and they're rebuying. And he's finding out that they're on average selling, 5 pieces per store per week, 20 pieces a month. And he talks to the owner and he says, yeah, this is really selling. You're in my top 3 lures. You've got a lot of great information there. You have your sell sheet, top 3 seller, either in your email or on your sell sheet. Then you say, hey, I'm going to go buy it from a data aggregator, store owners of fishing tackle shops. You might pay a little bit for that money, but you could buy, maybe there's 25,000 of them in the country. You could buy 5,000 of these names. Mm-hmm. Then you go out and you can start reaching out to them, sending them the sell sheet, and then calling and following up. What we did with MagnaPals, we sent some out. Like you said, there's a follow-up game. So I went and I found a charismatic person, paid them an hourly rate, said, here's your job. You send out this email, you send out this sell sheet, you send out through the mail a sample of it, and then you do a follow-up email and you call them.
Yeah.
And then you just call up. And with a lot of these independent stores, they're more willing to talk to you because they're business people. Mm. They want to excite and engage their customer. They love what they're doing. Yeah. It's their store. They like when their customers come back and they go, hey, get a load of this. You fish for trout. Mm-hmm. That's the greatest lure there. Mm-hmm. So, you tell a fishing story in that case. And so yeah, it's scalable. And you don't always have to go and just hire that high-end person, but it starts with that. Since you care, when you figure it out, you learn how to sell it. You just teach somebody else exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, you brought up one of the questions that the small or even large retailer is going to ask you is, what's my price? How do you figure out? You should have that already pre-done and on your one sheet or whatever it may be. How do you figure out that price?
Yeah, I generally don't put on the one sheet the pricing because the price may vary depending upon the circumstances.
Okay.
Great. I want you to deliver it to each of my independent stores. Well, that's more expensive than if the guy says, hey, I'll pick it up from you. So by quoting the price on you can quote retail price, mm-hmm. but I think you would fall, your price or program is in your email.
Gotcha.
And you really need, again, I hate to go back to being a student, but let's go back to that fishing tackle guy. You go into a handful of shops and you go, hey, what do you get for your lures? What do you pay? I've developed some. Try and get somebody to talk to you to try and get an idea.
Right.
Because generally when you get to the big retailers, you go, how much margin do you need? Just give me your best price.
Yeah.
In general, with the independents, if you just use that idea of Keystone, it's a $10 item. Your cost is $5.
Yep.
You're in a really good starting place. You may be hurting yourself in some cases, but they got to have a reason for spending that first money to turn it back into cash. And at big retail, there's a lot of calculations related to it. It's all about that gross margin return on inventory invested. And there's a simple formula, and you can boil down the performance of your product down to that one number. And a lot of retailers look at that on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. So you really don't need to worry about that right now.
Okay.
All I'm trying to really illustrate is that if you want to give them less margin, they have to sell more, and it's less attractive. As great as your product is, they're in business to make money. They got a family to feed. You want to help them feed their family. Mm-hmm. And if you're offering them more sales or more margin than the others, then they're more interested.
Attractive. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And have you found in your own personal experience that these mom and pop shops, let's just call them that, or smaller retailers, overall that they are willing and want to kind of help you through this process? Or
in general,
yeah.
In general, yes. I mean, it has to. Nobody wants to help with something that is of no value to them or their customer. So you have to assume that you're approaching them with a clear reason and a clear method to sell the product, and ideally some proof that it will work. Now, in the earlier stages, you may just fall back onto really need your advice, just trying this out. Mm-hmm. I'll make sure your business isn't hurt. Let's get this in the store.
Right.
Let's try it. I'm even happy to come in there on a Saturday and I want to talk to your customers. Let me see if I can sell it. Those sorts of approaches are so good. When you stand in that retail environment and you're talking to the customer, boy, you're going to learn so much.
Well, that's what Grant said earlier. Is like, unfortunately, the lesson wasn't necessarily favorable to the
experience.
The experience wasn't favorable, but the lesson was gold.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be afraid to hear no, and don't be afraid to just grasp all that knowledge that people are spewing, even if it's not what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Put it this way. No is your friend.
Yeah.
You're going to hear so much of it. And if you think about no, you've not given me enough information to say yes. So the question is, no, I understand why.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't use a product like that. I don't like the color. You may get a pearl of wisdom that changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No and failure. Make failure your best friend. I've said it before, but what a better opportunity to learn. Yeah. You are rarely going to forget a lesson than one in which you failed at. So those are great things, great takeaways. Well, I really like the strategy. I like that we're going over both a grandiose pathway into big-time, big-box retail sales, as well as just a more local approach, because, you're going to have to start small, you're going to have to start local. And I'm sure the listeners have been tired of hearing Marcus and I preach about just go viral, just go viral. Well, we know that's never going to be in some people's wheelhouse, but there's plenty of people who bring a product to market without social media. Maybe they open the page and they have the 15 followers and that's it. That's very, very common. So don't feel bad about that. But there is always a different pathway.
I just wanted to recap for everybody out there that you're fresh off the boat, you've got your idea in front of you, you've got your product in front of you. The one kind of biggest piece of advice I'm pulling from you from this podcast is have a good sales sheet, or a good one sheet sales sheet. Yeah. Make it concise and clean, and then also know the hell out of your own product and be ready to sell that product. And with those two things, that's a really good jumpstart, whether you start with a local or smaller retailer to gain your knowledge, and they'll probably be more friendly towards you and accepting. And then that same strategy is going to be for big box stores. It's just you're probably not ready to just hit that right off the bat.
Yeah, and if I could just jump on that.
Yeah,
please.
If you think about the big box stores, there's only a handful of them. Yeah. And there's a merchant who's responsible for this, and that merchant may change. By the time you get to them, you don't want to be practicing.
Right.
They have limited time, and if you can get the good graces where they're going to read your email or listen to you, you need to be on point, relevant, and clear, and demonstrate to him there's a reason for your product to be on the shelf and the benefit to them. Mm-hmm. The other thing, and we really didn't touch on, is, and I'll just say, don't swim upstream. There are some markets and some retailers that have a particular structure. They buy from distributors. They don't use one SKU vendors. They don't do. You may have to kind of study and find the best way in. Sometimes it's not directly. You have a wonderful item. It's too expensive for me to set that up. But you may find that there's a distributor who has 8 items on there similar to yours. What if you went to that distributor and said, I'd like to present with you or present my product? There's another way in. Mm-hmm. If you're in food products, it's a whole different structure.
Oh yeah.
If you're in garments, there are different things, different timings. So before you're getting to the retailer, kind of understand that. And, funny how much you can learn just going into a retail store, standing there, and when the store associate comes up to you, just saying, hey, how are you? What's selling? How does this work? Who places the order? Well, it's amazing what you'll learn. You could even find a store manager and go, I'm sorry to pull you away from your busy day. I've invented something. I'm planning on approaching the organization. Can you tell me blank, blank, blank?
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Whether they know it or not, you might get a super pearl of wisdom and the direct line that you never knew existed.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to be clear if you're doing that, because you're not saying to the store manager, hey, you want to buy my item?
Right.
Because, it's just...
It's not the right person anyway.
Yeah, it's not right. You just want to, any advice or any wisdom about the category. they might tell you some interesting things. Oh, geez, the only product that sells here is that brand. All these others don't sell. Wow, you learned something.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's part of, like you said, the biggest thing you can do is go get educated about your product.
Yeah. Because imagine you call up the buyer and you're able to say, hey, I know your category. The only thing you're selling is vitamin water. The others don't sell. I can tell you why. Are you interested? Boy, that's different than, hey, you want to buy my vitamin water knockoff?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap it up, is there anything that you use to keep you motivated? Like, is there any books you would recommend or anything like that that helps you get in the space of motivation?
I've been doing this a long time, and I've kind of set things up in a way where my business is set up for quality of life.
Sure.
So I don't have anything specific that I would recommend. I find that everybody gets their own things drive them.
Yeah.
One of the things that drives me is the ability to do things when I want and how I want. And so that's been a driver for me, and it's just brought quality of life and enjoyment. And if you're sitting there with an invention, you're inventing it, you're not a normal person. You're not looking at the world like everybody else. You're saying the world can be different and better.
Yeah.
And I think those are the things. If you've got something and you believe in it, you should wake up every day, and that thing should excite you and motivate you, because it's going to take that much effort. So it's really got to be that deep inside.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's motivation enough for me, certainly. Well, thank you for that, Craig. Thank you so much for this episode. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in today. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. And if you're listening, go ahead and follow the show. It really helps on the back end. This has been episode 16, A Retail Strategy. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.